Today in episode 51 of the podcast, we are reviewing the films Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Mufasa the Lion King. We also want to take a moment to wish everybody a happy holidays and a Merry Christmas. Rest, relax, and have some fun with your family and friends. But I'm Brad, he's Josh, and this is We'll Bring the Popcorn.
So before we jump into our film reviews this week, please take a moment to like and subscribe us on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you're getting our videos when they drop every single Monday. We can't thank you enough for your continued support. Also, if you're listening to us in the audio room, please give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. Also, go to willbringthepopcorn.com for all of our archive footage, our merch store, our social media information. Come talk to us. Join us on Discord. All of the fun things. We'd love to hear from you, and thank you once again.
And before we kick off things this week, we're not really going to touch on any news because it was a bit slower. Knowing the holidays, there's not a whole lot that's coming out, but we wanted to do a little bit on mental health here. Just make sure everyone is taking care of themselves. We know the holidays can be hard. Got some friends that lost their mom and other people. Just, me and Josh both lost our dad. It can be a trying time when you have people that you don't have around anymore that you used to seeing around the holidays, or being single, alone. Like there's many different reasons and things that can get people down on the holidays. It can be a joyous and joyful time for many, but it can be a hard time for others with anxiety and stress and mental health. So we just want to reiterate that take care of yourself. Make sure you're getting plenty of rest. Talk to people if you're having trouble. Don't be afraid to reach out to a friend or family member or somebody if you're having those dark thoughts. If you're having struggles and issues, reach out to someone and talk to them. We will put in the description of the video and of the audio podcast for some links to the suicide hotline, for other mental health organizations that can help you out if you need someone else that you want to talk to that's maybe not a friend or someone you know closely. But just make sure you reach out, talk to somebody, and don't let that overwhelm you and get you to that point, because again, holidays can be really hard. End of the year can be really hard. We've got a lot of people who's losing jobs and everything else right before the holidays. It can be a tough time. Just take care of yourselves, take care of your mental health, and hopefully you can get through the holidays strong and try to have a happy time.
Yeah, be kind to yourself. There's always brighter days ahead. It is so important to have these conversations, not to bottle things up and let them become overwhelming. If you have somebody in your life that you can lean on, have these conversations with, we encourage you to please do so. Please reach out. A lot of people may not know that you're struggling with the things that you're struggling with, and you could feel isolated and alone. Know that you're not. Know that there are people out there that care about you and are willing to have these tough conversations with you. If not, it's okay to reach out to a stranger as well and seek the help that you need, because there are people out there that are willing to help you in your time of need if you need it. We're big proponents of having those conversations, talking about mental health and struggles. It's something we want to normalize in society anyway. There's always kind of a stigma behind it, but at the same time, we have to talk about these things. We can't let it bottle up inside, eat us alive, those types of things. So please, if you have someone in your life, reach out to them, let them know you love them, let them know you care about them. Check in on your friends as well. Some people who you may not hear from necessarily during the holiday season, they could be going through a rough time as well. So reach out to the ones you love, check on them, and let them know that, hey, you're here for them if you need them to be, and they could be there for you as well. And just kind of lean on each other. We're big on that.
Yeah, just make sure, even if you're not having any struggles or issues, or you're able to deal with yours, let your friends, let your family, let people around you know that you're there if they need someone to talk to, if that you can be someone that they can vent to and not be judged, and be able to listen and hear and have somebody. That's just as important as someone who is struggling to reach out. Reach out to your friends and family. Let them know you care about them. Let them know that you're there anytime they need it, because especially this time of year, a lot of people need that.
For sure. And there's no real easy way to just kind of transition to a movie review. But at the end of the day, we are a movie podcast. So let's go ahead and talk about our first film of the week, which is Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Now, this is the third installment of the Sonic the Hedgehog film series. Very popular, kind of one of the better, in my opinion, video game adaptations into film at this point. Spurned also the Knuckles series on Paramount Plus, which is a kind of a hidden gem. I don't hear too many people talking about it, but it was only a 6-episode series, little mini series. It was really well done too. I really enjoy these movies, but this film now introduces yet another hedgehog into the fray in Shadow, who is voiced by the incredible Keanu Reeves. You know, they expand the cast a little bit with some new people in this as well, but you have your main three. You have Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles all teaming up to take on Shadow. And I got to admit, man, after seeing the first one, I was a big fan of the first film. The second film I thought was still good, but probably not on the same par as this one. I'm going to kind of jump the gun a little bit. This third one might be my favorite of the three.
It's kind of surprising how Sonic started out, because before the first one came out, we really hadn't had that much good releases when it came to video game stuff. And we know Sonic started off with when the first trailer dropped and everyone saw the look that they were going for Sonic, and the internet revolted, like, why are you making Sonic look like that? And they redesigned it to what we have now, and it helped that film like immensely. Like, it, you know, the first two have done gangbusters, made a ton of money. I expect the third one to make a ton too, because I'm just right there along with you. I really loved and enjoyed this. I had such a great, fun time with Sonic the Hedgehog 3, even though it did touch some more darker, dramatic elements with Shadow and Maria, because you get their backstory and exactly why Shadow is just out for revenge. He's out to take out Gun and anybody involved with that. He doesn't really care who he's hurting and who he's going, but you get a great dynamic that builds between him and Team Sonic and all that, and you get plenty of humor and stuff. You do get a few characters, our main characters with Tom and Maddie, take a little bit of a backseat. It's more about Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Dr. Robotnik, because we get Jim Carrey returning. He retired before Sonic 3. If we even knew about Sonic 3, we thought, all right, they left Sonic 2 in a way that they can move on and do a different villain, but they decided to bring him back. But he's also playing against himself. He plays a dual role in this film, and I just absolutely love Jim Carrey. Like, he plays off himself so well, but plays off of everybody else so well. Like, he did fantastic playing this double character, even though you get some really silly, crazy, over-the-top moments where he's fighting himself, going back to Liar Liar, like he's kicking his own butt, and you can take on. There's a lot of, which I love too, which some of the younger might not get it, that there was a lot of references to other stuff, because I saw there's a Christmas scene where the Gerald is playing Santa, and he's seeing, you know, Dr. Robotnik is seeing him, and he jumps on him. That's from Grinch, like how Grinch jumps on the tree and everything there. And like, his physical comedy is just so incredible, because he's willing to put his body through whatever and look whatever. Because, you know, we catch up with Robotnik once we find that he's alive. He's got a beer gut, and he's got really long hair, and he's watching, which is one of my favorite little cameos. I don't want to spoil who it was. If you're a fan of Ted Lasso, you're going to have a lot of fun with it, but he's watching these soap operas and stuff and going on. I was cracking up the whole time watching those.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. You get a really fun story in this where, like you said, there are some darker elements that kind of come into play here where, Shadow just cares about getting revenge on anybody who could have been even remotely responsible for, the things that happened to Maria. You get the exposition there. You get kind of what you don't expect in like a team up at first with, Team Sonic and Dr. Robotnik, but you also see the other character that Jim Carrey plays, which winds up being his grandfather. Mm-hmm. And his grandfather, who we find out is in cahoots with Shadow and was involved in, helping Shadow get his revenge. So you see kind of that dynamic play out, start off one way, and then Robotnik kind of joins up with his grandpa after finding out that he's alive, and it becomes, this whole, back and forth on, whose agenda is going to win out in the end, because, Dr. Robotnik's always going to kind of look out for his own interests, and you know how that's going to play out. But this was a lot of fun. It had some heartwarming moments. It had some really fun humor. It's a fun, cheesy film. Like, you know what you're getting when you're getting into these Sonic films. There is some cheesiness that goes along with it, but it's part of the charm of the series. And I gotta say, I absolutely love Idris Elba as Knuckles. He's so funny, and like the very straight-laced, very funny but very serious kind of
1,000% muscle.
Yes, he's so funny in this. Like, he's really in his element in his voice acting here, and they just do such a fun job of like playing off of each other. The team dynamic's a lot of fun, and it's just, I didn't think I would enjoy it more than I did the first one, because when you start talking about getting 3 or 4 movies into a franchise, you're like, okay, the quality is inevitably going to take a dive, and I don't really think we got that in this film. Like, it's really, really good, and like I said, I think it might be my favorite of the 3 so far.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising after going 3 deep here that this is probably my favorite of the 3, that they actually took some good steps forward, because you got a little bit different building with the characters about, now they're a team and they're figuring out that team dynamic, but, Shadow kind of brings that in because, of course, Knuckles just wants to punch everything, but then Sonic is kind of willing to do whatever he can to protect the people he cares about, and that creates a wedge between them, but there's a lot of dynamic that goes between, and we do get a team up with Dr. Robotnik for a little bit because, Shadow ends up becoming a enemy to both of them, but we also get a lot of back and forth. Then there's a lot of pop culture and other references, which I don't want to spoil all of those, but of course my daughter is into like almost every reference they made. So she's like, they're talking about it, and you also get that restaurant scene, which does a lot. So there's a lot of fun in jokes. There's even a few Keanu Reeves jokes that they make, even though he's in the film now, they still make some jokes about him, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, it was really great. Like it was cheesy, it was over the top in moments, but it was just so fun. Like it's one of those experiences in the movie theater. I'm just like, I'm having such a great time watching this film from beginning to end. I was just enjoying myself immensely. And so I did want to touch a little bit on Shadow. If you don't know his backstory, if you're not a huge gamer or anything like that, but so in the movie wise, he's kind of been in a cryo type of prison for 50 years. Yeah. So we find out that he crash landed on the planet, and immediately he's taken under and experimented on, and they're trying to figure out his chaos powers and everything else. But, when they decide that he's too powerful or something else, they decide that they're going to kind of trap him. But within that, we have a granddaughter that shows up in Maria, and she becomes friends with Shadow. And so their relationship is very core to this film because it is kind of a dark, dramatic storyline that puts Shadow into this state where he is for most of the film. But Keanu Reeves was fantastic, as he is in most everything. Like, whether you like, he's got a deadpan delivery, most everything, but he's just so much fun. And he actually does a little bit different here, but like the CGI animation for all the characters look fantastic. You've got a lot of darker scenes when it comes to Shadow, because they go to Japan, and you've got Japan and all bright and colorful up top, but it's at night and it's raining, and they're really setting the atmosphere really great. And even got Knuckles you've got Shadow with a gun, and you get showing off all of his powers. And I think they just did a really great job of bringing that character to life.
I really think so too. And, they keep some of the core story from the games and stuff involved in it. And they don't, they kind of do their own thing with it, which is a lot of fun too. But they keep a lot of those fun elements from the games and incorporate them into the story in a way that, you can still have fun, and it's an ode to us OG gamers who have played Sonic throughout the years that love the games as much as we do, but it's also made that it's super appealing to kids. Kids love it. Families love it. I know the theater showing I went to was full of people, and we were all just having a good time laughing, cutting up, and, enjoying the film. And, one thing that they kind of... You always wonder when they get so far into a franchise, like, is this going to be the last iteration? Well, right before the movie came out, they kind of let it slip just out in the blue that they are making a 4th film. And when you get to the end, there are some extra scenes that do set up where they're going into the future. So you get like this really, it ends on this really touching moment where, like, gonna little light spoilers here. You kind of have to set up where they're going with it. But, in the end of the day, it is a family film. Sonic finds a way to break through to Shadow to kind of get him back on the good side and kind of realize, hey, this revenge isn't really going to solve anything. And it's done in a really, warm, heartwarming way. And I think they did a really good job of getting to that point where now you see where it could potentially be going moving forward. And it may not be the last Hedgehog character that you see if you've played these games over the years. We're about to get a very important to more modern Sonic games characters joining in the fold. And I won't spoil who that is, obviously, because I want you to see it for yourself. But there's some fun, exciting directions I think they're going moving forward with this as well.
Yeah, stay tuned for the mid-credit and post-credit scene. They're both worth staying for because they do, the end credit kind of gives you little answers to something that happened at the end of the movie, while the mid-credit sets up Sonic 4, which could be really exciting. Like there's definitely one character in there that a lot of people have been waiting for, and
Yes.
I'm not going to say anything else but that, but it was really fun to see. But yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. I mean, with the trailers and stuff, you kind of saw the same scenes and everything over. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. Like they're not wanting to give away all the good stuff, or maybe we don't have a whole lot that we think is good from the movie, so we're just going to keep showing the same. But the whole film was great. Like it was fantastic. I just want to give some love to Jim Carrey again. Like he plays off of everyone else so well. He's been great as Dr. Robotnik. I'm glad he decided to return, but also getting to play against himself, which he does so well, which has got to be a difficult thing because like you're trying to remember, all right, I was way over the top doing this. All right, now I'm switching to this character and I've got to go over the top and do this in a different way, especially the dance sequence. There's a big dance sequence in the movie, which was ridiculous, but it was so much fun because he played off of himself so well. Like it was like you were watching two different people because he played off of himself so fantastically to match the moves and everything else. Like I'm glad his retirement was kind of a little short-lived because he's also talked about potentially returning for the Grinch, but he doesn't want to put the makeup back on. He wants to use motion capture to do it. And, there's talks about maybe a third Dumb and Dumber movie. There's been quite a lot of talk about he might come back and do a bunch of sequels here to other stuff, but it was fantastic seeing him return for Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Like he was a lot of fun. He was great, but I did like the darker elements with Shadow and Maria, and then you got to see, because there's a lot of kind of good dialogue and lines between them that they quote throughout, because it's kind of setting up his mental state and where he is and this connection that he has. And you get good motivation of why he's so angry and why he's wanting to destroy Gunn, because, even Sonic and all them see Gunn as now is like, okay, maybe they're not exactly our friends fully, that they've done some bad, and we shouldn't be 100% aligned with them. We got Kristen Ritter showing up as a character for Gunn and stuff. She got to have some silly fun and stuff in the movie too. But yeah, overall, Sonic was it was a ton of fun. It was a lot more fun than I was expecting to have with it. Being the third one of a video game series, that the first two have been great, but it's just like when it started out as it did, from the first trailer to where it is now, it's pretty crazy.
I love that they didn't keep all of the good stuff in the trailer, and that we get some good stuff outside of it. And it really did a good job of kind of hiding the tone of the film too, really. Like, you understand from the trailer that, Shadow was going to be the threat in the movie, and he's this dangerous threat. You kind of did the same with Knuckles when Knuckles was presented in the second film as well. But, you get there eventually, and I love that they didn't give everything away in the trailer. I love, they have some fourth wall breaking elements in the movie that are a lot of fun, kind of a meta take on itself. It doesn't take itself too seriously, which I can appreciate. And the humor's funny. The jokes land. It's smart writing. It's very funny in subtle ways and fun in cheesy ways. And it's okay to be cheesy and be funny at the same time. Like, it doesn't mean it's bad when I say it's cheesy all the time. Like, you could tell by the tone when I say cheesy, whether it's a good cheesy or a bad cheesy.
Yeah, it definitely can be a good cheesy and a bad cheesy.
Yeah, this is definitely a good cheesy in this case, but it's such a fun movie. If you've liked the first two, people have already talked to about the movie that love the first two, absolutely love the third one. It's getting a lot of positive buzz around it, and for good reason. It's so much fun. So at the end of the day, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is really just a fun family movie. Everybody's going to have a good time watching it. There's a lot of humor. There's a little bit of a darker tone in this, which I don't think we were necessarily expecting. Not in a bad way, but it's a good way. You get 3 films into this franchise, and it's just as strong as it's ever been, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And it's setting up to go even forward, and I'm actually looking forward to a 4th, which you can't say for a ton of franchises. So for that, I would give Sonic probably an 8. It was an 8 for me. Like, it's a really solid movie with a lot of humor, a lot of fun. It's not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it is so much fun. It knows what it wants to do. It does everything it wants to do right in a way that's fun, funny, and just it's just a good movie. Like, it's a solid movie. It's one of the films that I think has a very high rewatchable effect for me, that I did go see it in theaters, but I do want to go see it again when it comes out on streaming, so it's going to have a high rewatchability factor for me.
And I agree, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 was a fantastic film. I had so much fun from beginning to end. It's got the cheesiness, but it has heart, it has drama, it has kind of all the elements you want from a family film that's trying to have fun, but also, do a good message to everybody. And it was a really enjoyable experience, and it's probably, to me, one of the best of the series so far. It might be the best of the series so far. I would probably give it a 9 myself. And again, this isn't comparing to other 9s or things that I gave, like comparing this to Wicked. They're definitely different 9s that they deserve. But I had so much fun with Sonic that it was that highly rated for me, because it was just pure enjoyment from beginning to end. My kids absolutely loved it. We had a great time in theaters watching it. It was a great experience for the theater, and it was just a fun overall film that I can't recommend highly enough to go check out. And yeah, it is one of the best, if not the best, of the series so far. They really nailed it, and I'm excited to see where it goes for the fourth one. I was already, all right, we're going to see it. Oh, it's not out to 2027. Why? Give me Sonic 4 now. Like, it was that good that I'm already 3 in. I want to see the fourth one now.
Absolutely. So Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is in theaters now. Go check it out. Come to our Discord. Come to our YouTube comments. Check us out on social media. Let us know if you have seen it. Let us know what you think. We'd be very excited to talk about this film with you. It's one of our favorites of the year. It's going to wind up on probably both of our favorite movies of the year list for sure.
Oh, absolutely. So moving on to our next film and review, we have Mufasa the Lion King. So it's a prequel, but it's also a sequel, and we'll get into that more in the review here, because there is some more stuff than I was expecting to happen outside of the main Mufasa storyline that takes place in like the modern time of the Lion King. But we do get to go on a journey with Mufasa to see exactly how he became from a young cub to being the king of the Pride Lands and stuff. And I gotta admit that I didn't have a whole lot of expectations going in. I enjoyed the live action remake that they did of it. It doesn't stand up to the cartoon at all, but that's a really tall task to go towards, because that is one of the, not only the greatest soundtracks of all time, but one of the greatest animated films of all time. There was a lot to try to stand up to, and the first one did well. I think this one probably is a little bit better to me than the original was, just in the way that it gave us something newer and fresher than the rehash of, because they didn't change much from the first live action that they did with it. And this one we got a little bit more depth and got to see a little bit more, but it was also visually stunning. Like it definitely looked a lot better than the first one. They did a lot of improvements. There wasn't that many times where I'm looking at it and like, all right, I'm seeing stuff stand out. Like visually, to the animators and everyone who worked on that part of it, like it looked fantastic.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that it's better than the original remake of The Lion King itself. And I'm one of those people, The Lion King is my favorite animated movie of all time. So I have certain expectations for any type of adaptation you want to do of this. Obviously, it's been a very successful Broadway play. Absolutely amazing. If you haven't gotten to see it, go see it if it ever tours and comes around you. That show is fantastic, phenomenal. Go see it for sure. The quote-unquote live action, because it's so hard to say because it's computer generated, but it looks real. Like it looks live
photorealistic
action.
CG.
Yeah, it's hard to describe it any other way, right? So we call it live action in this case. That's what we mean, but this is definitely a step up from that. Now, there are a couple little issues with like the facial animations of the lions themselves, but I think that's a really small kind of ding that I would put against it. The telling of this story was really good. It was solid. You get this tale of Mufasa who, has his own family, and, we're going to have to talk about what happens in the movie, obviously,
yes,
a little bit.
A little bit of spoilers.
Some spoilers, but he gets separated from his family due to this great flood, and where he winds up washing up, he runs into Taka, who is another young lion cub who kind of saves him from an alligator attack, and they kind of form a bond, and he goes back to, Taka's family who don't accept him. They don't accept outcasts, and, he's kind of forced to live with the female lions instead of laying around all day with the king and the male lions. So the female lions are the ones that go and hunt and learn all these tracking. And you come to find out Mufasa is just naturally gifted to do so, right? So you go on this journey of him growing up with Taka and the brotherly bond that they have. There's some fun moments there, some fun songs, one absolutely funnily absurd thing that's going to come out of it. And I don't know why I'm going to see people probably making a meme out of it. It's the way that Taka says brother in the movie, like a brother, like just it's gonna ingrained in my head, not in a good way either, because I felt that was a little annoying. But the overall story is really good in this. There are some good songs that they come into it. I don't think it's going to be on the iconic level of the Lion King original soundtrack, because like you said, one of the greatest soundtracks of all time for any movie, let alone an animated feature. But There's some good songs in there, a good story of, just like you said, how he became the king of, the Pride Lands. And it's a fun tale. You see this very real threat from the group of white lions that are trying to take over and wipe out everything. And he's the leader of that group, is wonderfully voiced by Mads Mikkelsen, who does a phenomenal job as the main villain. I wasn't
expecting to hear him sing.
Yeah, and he actually sings in the movie, which is crazy. But it's a fun story. Like you said, it's visually just gorgeous. Like, this film is so wonderfully made. Like, visually, it's just stunning. And even like in the theater, part of the thing that gives it a little bit of an uptick for me is the use of sound in the movie. Like, the sound editing in this film is top notch for me, because you feel like paws in the snow. You feel the rumble, like when you have these running scenes from big stampedes and stuff like that. You get that feel of that
feeling
sound in the movie. Like, you feel like you're in the middle of it. Yeah. Like, the sound editing on this is top notch. But I really wound up liking this more than I thought I would, because I wasn't the biggest fan of the last live action retelling of the Lion King story. When they came out with this one, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this, but I want to being somewhat pleasantly surprised like this. It's not a perfect movie by any means. There's definitely some demerits to it, but I had a good time watching this.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by it too, because it ended up telling a decent story. We weren't sure exactly where they were going to go with it. We've had a lot of animated sequels of Lion King that were just okay, that they did, direct to video back in the day and stuff. But I think they told a good story in a fun but dramatic, and it flowed really well, and we got to see that dynamic, and we see everything building between Mufasa and Taka, and get to see exactly where Taka is going and how he gets his name that everybody knows him by and stuff. I was a little more mixed on the music. Like, of course, Lion King soundtrack is epic, one of the greatest, if not greatest, soundtracks out there, along with the Tarzan soundtrack, and we could list off a ton more, but it is one of the best out there. Like, they got Lin-Manuel Miranda to do some of the songs, but they didn't, the score was fantastic. It felt great. The original songs, they were a little hit or miss, because none of them were as memorable as any of that. And Mads' song with the Bye Bye was a little kind of strange and cheesy to me, not in a good, because he's a very serious, evil type of lion who's just spends the entire movie chasing these cubs down, and as they grow up and everything too, he wants to kill them, and then you have kind of the cheesy song and Bye Bye. It didn't fully fit that well. Maybe it's just, well, we got Mads, we need to make him sing something cheesy and stuff. But I thought overall all the voice acting was much improved. I did have, with the first Lion King, I wasn't crazy about Beyonce being Nala and stuff, just because I just didn't feel like she fit very well. And of course she hadn't done much acting and stuff, but I felt like you do have their daughter in here and everything, and she was fantastic in the movie. The voice acting felt so much more connected to the characters this time around, because you do have Donald Glover and you have Beyonce return. And I think all of them, even like we were saying, I didn't like Beyonce in the first one, she didn't have a whole lot to do in this one. But she was fine. She was great. Everyone sounded good. I felt the voice acting fit a lot better in this one than it did in the first one, even though there was some over-the-top cheesiness. Because the story is actually told by Rafiki. So we start off the movie with Kiara is being kind of pawned off to Rafiki and the rest of the tribe because Nala is pregnant, and Simba and Nala are heading off for the birthing and everything that happens with them. So there's a big storm coming, and so they try to tell a story. So we got Timon and Pumbaa gets to show up and have some cheesy over-the-topness and stuff with that, which I liked, but I also didn't, because I felt they were trying a little too hard to include Timon and Pumbaa, because they just kept cutting out of Mufasa's story, going back to there's some stuff for the story that fit well for them to cut back to, but most of it seemed just to have a reason to have Timon and Pumbaa making jokes and doing stuff, which was good and bad. Some of the jokes didn't hit as well.
Very
and
meta.
It was kind of okay, but we did get to see Simba and Nala again, and we get to see Rafiki, but we also get Rafiki as two different voice actors, because we have the younger and we have the older, and of course, which I loved and we didn't talk about, which I wanted to bring back up now that it's popped in my head. At the very beginning of the movie, they do a great little tribute to James Earl Jones, who, of course, was the original Mufasa and legendary voice. They started the movie straight off with a tribute to him, which I thought was fantastic for them to do of that.
Agreed.
But yeah, it has its flaws, it has its faults, but overall I had a good time with it.
Yeah, I agree, and I definitely agree on the Timon and Pumbaa aspect of it. Like, they're, iconic characters from the cartoon, right? They're so over the top and funny. They were a little too meta in this case, like talking about, gotta have our time in the sequels or something like that. Like, very meta take, like kind of fourth wall breaking jokes a little bit that I don't think were necessary for this film, but you get some of that charm from them as well. Like, oh, we're actually the stars of this story. Like, we're the ones who actually did this kind of thing. And I was like, is that really something that they would say necessarily? Yep. But like, that's one of the small like knocks I have on the film, is just I didn't care so much for the use of Timon and Pumbaa in this. Like, they had a little bit of comic relief, but I think they were almost trying a little too hard to be funny at some point. So it was just like it felt a little forced, but it didn't really. It's so minor in this film. It kind of doesn't really detract from the rest of the story, which is just justifiably centered around the Mufasa story and everything that they went through there, which I think at the end was done really well. And, for that, I would say it's definitely better than the last Lion King remake, and it puts it definitely at a level above that. It still doesn't come up to meeting the expectations I have from the animated movie, but I think this one does a fine job of holding its own.
Yeah, because the animated movie's a 10. Like, it's
absolutely
one of the greatest. I mean, had one of the most dramatic moments that still... Everybody who grew up with it, like, seeing Mufasa die in the original Lion King and Simba's reaction and stuff to it was just like, okay, childhood trauma brought up every single time we watch this movie.
And they played off of it a couple times in the film where you have like Taka grabbing Mufasa by the paws, where it's just like, oh God, it broke my heart again. Like, I had a little bit of that.
We're going to get you
moment.
again.
It's just like, no, it doesn't happen yet, but here's a little extra foreshadowing.
They almost went too far with how many times they did it, but I'm glad they kind of stopped where they went, because it could have been too much. Because like, oh, you got it. Are we doing it again?
Yeah, I was like, okay, like one little wink and a nod might be okay, but they did it twice. And I'm like, I don't know if I'd have done it that many times, but yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed Zazu in that film as well. Zazu was fun. I don't necessarily know why John Oliver wasn't involved in this one, even though he was involved in the 2019 one. I don't know if they just couldn't get him to come back.
I don't know why they decided to do the younger ones and not just let the actor, like with Rafiki, as I mentioned, they could have just had that same actor play Rafiki again. But the one who played the younger was fantastic. Like, there wasn't really a whole lot of difference between the two.
Yeah, and it's one of those you kind of just turn your brain off to that sort of thing and just kind of take the story as it's being presented. But yeah, it was fun, man. I had a good time with this one.
And so in the end, Mufasa the Lion King was a sequel that ended up being better than the original. So, I mean, I say sequel because of all those scenes. It's a prequel that's also a sequel. So it's a little messy in that way, because it has probably about 10-15 minutes worth of scenes that are a sequel, while the rest of the movie is a prequel. But the animation looked great. They really improved the visuals. The voice acting for me was a lot better and more improved over top. It told a good story overall. Some of the songs the score was fantastic, but the original songs with lyrics and stuff just didn't hit the same mark. But that was a huge legacy to try to come live up to, because the original Lion King animated movie has the greatest soundtrack of all time. So I would probably give Mufasa a 7.5 to 8. Like, I still really enjoyed it a lot. It had its flaws and faults and stuff, but it did allow them to grow a little bit more and do some more original stuff, because the first remake was more along the lines pretty straightforward. They didn't change a lot of stuff. So this allowed them to explore more, give you more depth, more heart, especially with Rafiki was able to go into the more spiritual, elemental stuff of it. But overall, it was a fun movie. I had a lot more fun with Sonic, I will say, but this was still a fun movie to go see.
Yeah, I agree. It's a fun take on a story that we already know. It's fun to kind of go back and see how Mufasa becomes this iconic father figure that he becomes in the original Lion King animated feature. It's a really well done visual take on the film. The story's solid. It's good. There's no real plot holes in the story that I would say take it anything. It gets a little bit of a knock on the kind of misuse of Timon and Pumbaa a little bit. Some of the original songs don't hit the way we think they could have necessarily, and for that reasons I gave it a 7. Like, it's still an enjoyable movie. movie. I would still probably throw it on again and watch it again, but it's one that definitely didn't like as much as Sonic, but it's still a fun family movie in its own right. If you love The Lion King, please give this one a chance too, because it's definitely a step up from the Lion King first try at this live action animation that they have done for this. It's definitely a step up from that. So if you're having a little bit of trepidation, understandable based on that one. This one is definitely better. I'd say you get a better entertainment value for this, better story, better visuals, and just an overall better experience. And that's kind of why I leave it around a 7 for me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I gave some extra points like I have on some other family films because of my kids' enjoyment.
Sure.
And I take them to experience these films, and I do want to give some bonus points because of their enjoyment. My youngest, she is obsessed with The Lion King, absolutely loves it, and she was just head over heels after watching Mufasa. Like, she didn't see any flaws. She was roaring like a lion afterwards. Like, she had such a great time. So that gave me some extra points. So as being a dad, of seeing my kids have that amount of enjoyment after something, because as adults we can be a lot more cynical and stuff.
Sure.
You can maybe look at some of our reviews in the past to see how we are and stuff, but yeah, it got extra points for me just because she loved it so much. Like, she is obsessed with The Lion King, as we were with when we were kids. And to see that through her eyes, I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll give it some bonus points because she just loved it so much. She's ready to go see it again right now. Wants it to be where she can watch it at home. We listened to the soundtrack on the way home just to listen to the songs a little bit more. She's been watching The Lion Guard and going through everything Lion King. She had her blanket and her stuffy and she had her lion tail that we got from Disney. Like, she was decked out. She was ready. She absolutely loved it. So that's what gave that extra 7.5 to 8 to me, was just the pure enjoyment that she got out of it.
I love that, but that's an important part of these movies, right? These movies are made for them. They're made for the kids. They're made for the kids' enjoyment. Like, we can find things that we like and get enjoyment out of them as well, but I think having kids that have that experience with the movie is important when kind of like grading on a curve. I call it grading on a curve for adults because, like, yeah, you know, with time and with life and experiences, we tend to become a little more cynical, a little more jaded about things, and you know, it's hard to kind of put ourselves mentally back in that place of viewing things through the eyes of a child like this. But I love hearing your experiences of your kids when they go see these films, because that's kind of the importance of these types of movies, right? Because we look at how we're glowingly talking about the original Lion King animated film that came out when we were kids, and such high regard that we hold it in. Like, I think it's a very important, like, telling of that experience through how your kids view things and how kids view these films, because at the end of the day, we jokingly talk about all these animated features getting like 1,000 sequels and 1,000 remakes and all these other stuff, and us as adults, we're like, do we really need it? But if your kids are finding the enjoyment about it, that's why they're doing it. That's why they're getting made. They're making the extra money, but the kids are enjoying it. And at the end of the day, I think that's kind of what it needs to do, right? If the kids are enjoying it, it's got to bump it up a little bit. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the greatest film ever made, but if they're getting enjoyment out of it, I can absolutely see why you're bumping it up as far as like your own personal grade, because I think if you were just to enjoy it, rate it personally, I think you and I would be pretty aligned with most everything, because we have similar tastes in movies for the most part, and just adding that experience of your kids to this is honestly, I think, a great perspective to have, because you know, you get to bring that, you know, that experience that they have with it to you to review these movies, and I think that helps kind of get a different perspective on what we're watching. Like, you may not enjoy it, but if your kids love it, at the end of the day, as a parent, that's kind of what you want, right?
Yeah, it's kind of what matters in the end, especially with a family film, something like this. Like, I think I may have almost had more enjoyment with Sonic than they absolutely love Sonic, but that was one that I really fell into and loving. And Mufasa was one that she really loved even more. So, like, my Sonic score, most of it was for me because I enjoyed it just that much, but I also gave some extra points. Might have been around an 8.5, but I gave it a 9 because it had that extra enjoyment for my kids. My oldest is a big Sonic fan, but so is my youngest and stuff. But yeah, I think it's important as a dad to include their opinion, especially on these family films, because that's who they're made for. Like, we want to find stuff to like, especially like we've had Pixar that has done a fantastic job of blending stuff for adults and kids and stuff, and we want to have a good time with it as well. And of course, reviewing it, we're looking at technical aspects, and we're trying to grade on a certain way of looking at films a certain way, but you also got to look at it from a personal side and, you know, for me as a parent side, just to see exactly how the full experience is done. And that's what I want to review and look at is how was a full experience from an individual, from a reviewer, from a dad. Take all that and to get my final score and stuff. And so, yeah, that gave Mufasa 7.5 to 8 for me because, yeah, my youngest, she just loved that movie.
I love that, though, but that's the kind of perspective we want to have, right? Like, that's, like, we like to rank these films based on certain things, and you can, feel about it how you feel about it. Please, if you feel differently than us, please come tell us and let us know we're either way off base or, spot on. But I love the fact that we can bring your kids' perspectives into these family films because I enjoy family films as much. I don't have kids of my own, but I love seeing the perspective of them because the way they talk about films, I love hearing because it's how we talked about the movies when we were kids, right? I mean, look at all this stuff that we have so much nostalgia for, that we love, that were a big part of our upbringing and why we like movies to begin with in the first place, because we have those types of movies that we connect with. And it's fun to see, like, when the next generation gets older, what are the things that when your kids are our age, what are they nostalgic about? What are they going back and like, oh man, this was such a huge movie for me as a kid. Is it a film like Frozen? Is it a film like, what is it that had that big cultural impact on them and shaped the way they view movies? Like, I love hearing about that because, we're not young, we're not old by any means, but we're not young either. Yeah, give me that look. But we have we have that nostalgia for the things that we had growing up, and I'll be excited to see what they have that nostalgia for as they get older too, and just kind of see how their movie viewing experience shapes the way they look at films when they get older. It's fun. That's what I love so much about this medium, is you can take things and it shapes your view on things, and then you apply that when you get older, and now, like, we have another generation that you could see just have that same experience, and it could be very different movies, and I'm excited to have those conversations.
Yeah, and I just loved seeing, like I said, I love seeing her reaction after it because she just had such pure joy after watching the film. And she enjoyed the first remake as well. She's rewatched it a few times, but her go-to still, just like us, is going to the animated film. She also loves the Lion Guard series that they did with Kion and, the kids and everything else that they did. For a few years on Disney Junior and stuff. But yeah, I love seeing her reaction. I think till like 9 o'clock at night she was still roaring like a lion, and she was giving her voice off. So because she also got to see a young female cub and being young girls. So you had Simba and the boys and the first one, so now you got a little bit more that got on the women and the ladies, because we also didn't touch on some more female aspects with the Mufasa story that added some more drama and deeper elements and stuff with that too. But yeah, overall it was fun, and yeah, I appreciate you allowing me to bring my kids' perspective into it, because I think it is important to have their perspective, and especially on something that's made for them, because they're not looking at the technical aspects. They're not mulling over dialogue. We may find the songs corny. They may absolutely love them. And, that's a big factor. That should factor into these reviews, because that's who it's made for first, is the kids, and everyone else after.
Yeah, of course. And like I said, it's fun to have that perspective, because like we said, that's who these movies are made for. Like, we can come review them and talk about them and put our spin, our view of the world, and the way we look at these movies is going to be completely different from them. And I love that. I love that dynamic between how we would look at it versus how they do. I love that your daughter was running around roaring like a lion. Like, it's just fun stuff. Like, that's stuff we would do as kids, and it's just so much fun, and why I love movies as much as I do, because like, as generations get older, move up, and the next generation comes up behind it, like, at the end of the day, a lot of the same things that we love about movies are going to be the same things that they love about movies, but it's just a different movie told in a different way. But at the end of the day, we're all getting that same enjoyment and perspective, and shaping why we love movies. And that's why I love talking about film as much as I do, because it's one of the perfect, entertainment mediums, because the possibilities are endless, and that's why I ride so hard for original storytelling sometimes, is because there's so many things you can do that haven't been done, and I'm excited to see that. But it's fun, man. I love movies so much that obviously we're doing a whole freaking podcast about it, but like, it's fun to see that, and it's fun to see, like, talking to my parents about the viewing experiences at the movies that they had is a completely different experience than what we had growing up. And now you have, like, moving into your kids and the next generation of people who are going to the movies now, where we had to we had to go search in the paper to find when the movies were coming out, or we had to call a phone number.
Call Mr. Movie
yeah.
Phone.
Yeah, call a freaking phone number to tell us. We didn't have the internet that could tell us when a movie was playing.
And that was fun because if you missed the movie you were looking for, you had to wait on the line until it came back around, because it would go through all the movies and then you'd have to go back again. Like, oh wait, I didn't hear all the show. All right, yeah, then go, yeah, because you had to listen through it all. You had to go to the newspaper. You drive by, because I always remember near us we had a cinema, the Showcase Cinema, that was near the highway, and it always had the big board that where they listed out all the films and stuff, and that was always something big for me as a kid, because it was like, all right, what's coming out? Okay, oh, we drove past it. What's coming out? Oh, all right, we got to go see that, because you didn't have the internet as big as it is now to be able to know immediately and get your tickets immediately. You would figure out, you would call, find the show times, you would show up, you'd wait in line, you'd get your tickets, and you would go there. There was no pre-buying. There was no, like, assigned seats or buying tickets early or anything. Yeah. You had to look it up in the newspaper, call the phone number, go to the theater, get the tickets, go in, try to find a group of seats together. I mean, it was all out war sometimes for big movies, because that's where like the midnight releases were huge for our generation and stuff, because they would do those midnight showings and you'd have to show up early and get in line to be able to get seats together and not be all the way up front. Now I do enjoy it that it's much easier that you can get assigned seats ahead of time and go, but it was a different experience for us as kids to go to a movie, because you had to look at things in a completely different way. You didn't have the trailers at your ready to watch at any time and all the viral marketing and everything else. Like, you may not see a trailer for a movie unless you saw it on a broadcast TV show commercial, or it was before another movie you just saw. So like it's definitely a different experience, and I do like in seeing the differences between my girl's experience with stuff and our experience as a kid, because she is having similar experiences that we did with the original Lion King as she is having with this one and stuff. So I could ramble for so much longer about it, but it was great to see, kind of as a proud dad moment, but also just kind of taking back to my childhood and like seeing her pure enjoyment of something was just real fantastic.
It's a lot of fun for sure, and it just kind of takes me back to when we were going to see movies, because God forbid you got to the movie theater and you were expecting to see a movie at a certain time and it was sold out. And then you had to figure out, you either go see that movie or do you go see another movie because you don't want to wait 2-3 hours for the next showing. Like,
you could play the arcade games on the side for like an hour and a half while the parents stood around waiting.
Kill some time. It was a very different experience. I am envious of the fact that now they're growing up with being able to hit a couple buttons and they can watch literally almost any movie that's ever existed. Like, unless you have one of the 187,000 streaming services that we have, but at the same time you have way more access to stuff than we had for sure. But it's fun, man. I love the dynamics between it. I love hearing like the way your kids view movies and talking to like my niece and nephews about the movies they like to go see, and it's so much fun to see their perspective on stuff, because it really gives me hope that the future of movies and the film going experience is never fully going to go away, and at the end of the day that makes me very happy.
And so I'm going to go ahead and move on to our what's coming up this week. This is our last full release week of 2024, and it's ending with some interesting films. So we have Nosferatu. We're ending with a big horror movie from Robert Eggers. It looks fantastic. I'm really looking forward to seeing that movie. We also got a complete unknown. So we have Timothée Chalamet as being Bob Dylan, and we've got a biopic that it already has a ton of buzz. Of course, by the time the movies come out at the very end of the year, we already have like the Golden Globe and other nominations. So this already got a ton of nominations for him. It looks really solid. And another one that's probably not going to get as much traction, but I'm looking forward to seeing, is A Fire Inside, telling, based on the true story of Clarissa Shields, who was a boxer from Flint, Michigan, of her trying to be the first female boxer in a long time to win a gold medal at the Olympics. It looks really solid. But I mean, you've got Sonic, you've got Mufasa, you've got Nosferatu, you have A Complete Unknown. You've got quite a lot that's going to be potentially overshadowing it, but that is one I want to go check out, and I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, very strong finish to the year. Like, we had a couple lulls during the movie year where it's like, okay, we might go talk and like go see this film or go see it. We're ending on some bangers, man. We got some good ones that are coming out at the end of the year, obviously, with Mufasa and Sonic that we just talked about. We just recently talked about a couple other films that we were excited for. I've been looking forward to Nosferatu for a minute now. Like, I love horror movies, and the fact that we're ending on the Christmas season with a horror vampire film, stoked for that one. It looks really cool. I'm excited to check that one out. The Bob Dylan, biopic with Timothy Chalamet, incredible actor, incredible story about Bob Dylan if you know nothing about his backstory and kind of like the folky artist that he is, like iconic songwriter, iconic singer, like absolute musical legend. Excited to check both of those out. And then The Fire Inside is another one that looks really good. The trailers of it look really solid, and it's just kind of winding up next to a couple of unfortunate juggernauts that's going to have trouble beating, but I'm excited to check that one out too. Like, that's 3 really good, legit films that I'm excited to end the year on a really big note for what's really been kind of an up and down, but some really high highs and some really low lows this year in film, and I think we're going to end it on a really good high note, and I'm excited to check those out and talk about them.
We also have a limited release in Better Man. So this is Robbie Williams' biography about himself, but it's done in a more unique, intriguing way because he is a monkey. He is an ape. Like, he's not doing it in a straightforward way. So it's one I'm like really mixed on, but it's one that's got me intrigued. Like, I got to see like, how are they pulling off? Are they going to get the emotional impact they need by replacing him with a monkey?
Yeah, that one I've seen. We've seen the trailer for this at a couple films that we've seen lately, and I'm definitely on the fence on. Robbie Williams is definitely an interesting character, to say the least, if you know anything about his career and some of the stuff that he's had to go through. So, gonna be interested to check that one out too, for sure.
So if that's out in your area, go check it out. Let us know what you thought of it. If you've ever seen it, I don't think we're seeing it showing anywhere around here. The full release will be out in January, so we might be able to check it out then, depending on our first episode of the year next year. We'll probably be looking at 2025 and seeing what we have going forward. And, we have some of the bigger films that we know that are coming out, but I'm looking forward to really breaking down and looking at everything that's coming forward, because there's probably quite a lot that don't realize that are going to be coming out in 2025.
It's a big, big, big year for movies going forward. There's a lot of big time films that are coming out. They're going to be really important for film franchises and other things that I'm very excited to check out.
Yeah, on demand, we already have Gladiator 2 and the comedy horror Y2K coming out on Christmas Eve. So on December 24th, you can buy or rent those. It's kind of surprising that we're seeing Y2K not as much, but Gladiator 2 coming as quickly as it is to on demand. But maybe they want it out for the holidays and see how many people buy it and watch it over the holiday season while people are off work, off school, because it's done decently in theaters and stuff. So, but that's kind of a quick release for it to come on demand.
I think it's succumbed to the absolute juggernaut that Wicked has been. Wicked is just still doing gangbusters, doing well, and just killing it. Incredible. Love that for that. Go into our archives and check out our review for both Gladiator 2 and Y2K. See what we thought of that. And obviously with Gladiator 2, you get our Wicked review as well. So excited for the double features that we've had to kind of end the year on, like several of them, and I'm excited for it.
We also got a couple decently big TV shows. So we have What If Season 3, the Marvel animated anthology of telling you different stories of, what if Peggy Carter was Captain America and other things like that. We have I think the first episode dropped at midnight for when we're re-recording this podcast, and it's dropping one every single day, I believe, until it's all out. But this is the final season they're doing of it, so it's going to be a big wrap-up of the What If, which I've enjoyed both seasons so far. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the final season here.
Yeah, I love that they're rolling out an episode a day, so I believe it's going from the 22nd until the 29th. I believe is the day that the last episode is, but if you haven't checked that series out, can't recommend it enough. It's a really cool take, a unique animation style as well for the show, but a lot of your favorite MCU actors do voices of their characters that they play in the films in the series. A couple of them not as much, but it's a really fun take on some hypothetical stories that could have happened in the MCU, and it's a really fun one if you're into that sort of thing.
And we have one of the biggest viral breakout hits of the last few years from Netflix with Squid Game. Season 2 debuts on December 26th, and I've actually been hearing some really good things that they, done really well, although the creator of it afterwards now says he's tired. He feels like he may be done with Squid Game after Season 2, but we've also got the American English remake that's happening. We've had the reality TV shows, so I doubt Netflix allows, with just how big of a juggernaut it's been in pop culture in the last few years since it came out, that they're going to let Squid Game die anytime soon. But I'm looking forward to checking out season 2. Like, it was a very disturbing, crazy, not what I expected when I watched season 1. So I really want to see how they try to top that, but bring some new levels to Squid Game in season 2.
Yeah, just ending the year on an absolute monster note with this. It was one of the biggest shows during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. It was one of the most viewed shows. Absolutely crazy show is right. It's the best way I can describe it. I know a lot of people are chomping at the bit for this, and we're finally getting season 2 after almost 4 years now that we've been waiting since season 1 came out. Very excited about that one. Some awesome actors that are going to be involved in that. And one actor from a show that we kind of trashed on the show with The Acolyte, and the actor that played Soul in that show. But, you know, he is in the Squid Game. I'm excited to check out season 2. Ending the year on an absolutely high note for Netflix is one of their biggest series, getting a follow-up. Going to be a ton of eyes on that one.
Yeah, I think that's probably... It's going to be interesting if it does as well as the original Squid Game did, because, again... that came out during the pandemic, had everyone at home, so it got a lot of eyes and viewership. But I feel like it's going to do really well.
I think so too. It's gonna be a big hit again for them. There's a lot of people. Do we know if the quality is gonna be as good? To be determined, right? But with as big as that show was, it's going to get a lot of viewership at the beginning, and that could bode well for them moving forward. Creative direction, moving in a different way or not, we don't know. With the showrunner potentially leaving after the second season, We'll see. We'll leave that TBD for sure. But that is going to do it for us this week. Once again, we cannot thank you enough for your continued support. We hope you have a very Merry Christmas, like we said. Top of the show. We'll put some links in to give you some information on where to go to for some mental health help as well if you need it. Love you guys. Thank you guys so much for your support. Coming up next week, we are reviewing Nosferatu and A Complete Unknown. Excited to check out both of those films to end the year on a really high note. And until next week, I'm Josh. He's Brad, and we'll see you then.